Hey everyone, it's James from Creators, and today I'm going to be showing you how to unbox and set up your Cutters Mate Mini. So first you'll see the cutting arm and the slide bar. So first we'll take the slide bar out of the box as well as the cutting arm here. So we'll set this aside, and in here we have our two waffle grids, and the two grid adapters are already plugged in for you. So we'll just scoot this here. And you just want to make sure that you give the grids a good kind of hit to make sure they're nice and level. So you don't have to worry about breaking the grids or anything like that. Chances are you'll hurt yourself before you hurt the grids. And in here are also some instructions, but you don't need that right now because you have me. All right, so here we have our cutting arm, and it came with this little cardboard piece. This is just to protect the cutting head while it's shipping. So I'm just going to lay this on the grid for now. And then it also comes with this little yellow cap. That's also to just protect the cutting head while you're storing it. So we can just set this off to the side for now. All right, so now that we have our grids set up here, I went ahead and just moved the grid adapter in kind of one grid space from the edge here. So you want to pretty much replicate that on both ends of the grid. That's about the amount of space that you need for the slide bar to fit into the grids. So I'm going to take the side of the slide bar that has the spring, and I'm going to compress that spring and then allow our slide bar to just fall down onto the grid adapters. So now that we have our slide bar in the grid, we can just take the Cutters Mate Mini, and there's this clip here. So we have the side that says Cutters Mate and then this hollow side. So you want the hollow side to go into the bar, just like that. So you just snap that on there, and then snap that on there. And now we're ready to cut. So the setup is very, very simple. It's just a matter of putting the grids together, putting the slide bar on the grid, and then simply clipping the Cutters Mate Mini to the slide bar. So now we're ready to cut any sort of shape. So there's two ways to go about oiling your cutter. The first one is by screwing off this top cap here. And the Cutters Mate is technically an oil-fed cutter. So you just screw off this cap, and you can take your cutting oil and just drop it down in there. And then once you're done filling it up, you just go ahead and retighten this cap. And then just tighten it about finger tight. It doesn't have to be super tight on there. And then the other option for oiling your cutter is just by dipping it in oil. So we sell this thing called the oil well, and it just plugs into your grid. And you can take your oil and just pour it in there, and it holds the oil. Now I'm going to actually move it a little bit closer here, and all you got to do is just dip it in there, and that also kind of cleans your cutting head too, because it has this foam in there that gets any sort of like debris or particles off of your cutting head, so it helps clean it as well. So we typically recommend the dipping method. It's not only cleaner, it also helps clean your cutting head as well. So now that you have oil in your cutter, you're ready to cut. So the Cutters Mate Mini has a weighted steel handle, so it helps you when you score to have a consistent amount of pressure, which is one of the 4 key principles of getting a perfect score on your glass. The Cutters Mate Mini helps you achieve all 4 of those key principles. So what you want to start off by doing is getting a little practice with how much pressure to use. So I'm just going to go ahead and score the glass a little too hard just to show you. If you're getting this white dust here, you can kind of see you're scoring way too hard. So really, all you need is just a little thin line. And what's most important is that you just hear the glass scoring. You might not actually even see it score, but as long as you hear that scoring sound, that's enough pressure. So I'm just gonna gently rest my hand on here and pull it off. And even that was a little bit too much pressure. So you could even go a little bit lighter than that. The next part is getting used to using your Cutters Mate. So I'm going to show you how to get used to using your Cutters Mate. So first what we're going to do is take a Sharpie on a piece of scrap glass. It can be any sort of glass, And we're just gonna draw a lazy kind of S-shaped curve. So it's just kind of a little wave. Now, the way you're gonna wanna hold your Cutter's Mate Mini is to hold it with both hands, kind of making a circle on the cutter like that. And that way, when you use both hands, the muscles in your hands are opposing each other, so they have a little bit more control when you're scoring your glass. So you want to imagine that the handle here is like the steering wheel of your car, and this screw right here is like the taillights in your car. So whatever direction you're headed, this screw is always going to be in the back of that direction of travel. So one other tip for cutting is there's this kind of gap where the cutting wheel is at. And that's a visual marker, at least for me when I'm scoring, because you want to imagine that that little gap is like your train, and the pattern line or the Sharpie line is the tracks. So you want that little gap to follow that. So we're just going to practice tracing this mark here. So I'm just going to put a gentle amount of pressure on and follow the track here. So now we'll go ahead and take our running pliers. Oh. So there we go. We went ahead and followed that lazy S curve. Now you can start out with just a regular Sharpie and then work your way down to a fine tip Sharpie. That's what I like to use for my personal glass projects because it's a lot more precise when you're trying to follow a very skinny line as opposed to a kind of wider line like the regular Sharpies put on your glass. So that's how to, one, get used to using your Cutter's Mate, and two, finding how much pressure to use with your Cutter's Mate Mini. So next I'm going to show you how to cut out a little bit more intricate pieces. So what I'm going to do essentially is just take the cutter, and I'm going to hold it with one hand and then use my finger to kind of just help support the cutting head throughout the score. So that gives you a lot more control for those little fine cuts. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold on to the cutter here. We're just going to trace this pattern. There we go. And now I'm going to do the same thing here. And just follow the score line. And I like to do this standing up because to get a good view of your cutter, I like to kind of rotate with the cutter, but you can use this sitting down as well. So it's really up to you how you want to cut. So there we go. We got our scores. Now we're going to go ahead and just run the scores. So there's one. There's two. And our last one. There's three. So you can tell that this is really efficient for when you're doing pattern work. If you have a lot of pieces that are right next to each other and that are using the same glass in your piece, you can put them right next to each other and have them actually share the same line. That's what I do to conserve on my glass. So it really helps get the most out of the sheets of glass that you're working with. So that's how to cut the more intricate pieces.